She said, "At least my ex was bigger," at our anniversary dinner. Everyone laughed. I smiled, said one line, and left. She thought I overreacted. Her father thought differently. So did the bank. So did the judge. By the time she realized what she'd lost, I was already gone. My name is Paul Brooks. I'm 50 years old, and I've spent the last 22 years building an industrial equipment supply business from nothing. Started in a rented warehouse with one truck and a dream. Now I've got contracts with half the factories in 3 states. My hands used to do the heavy lifting. Now they sign the contracts. But that night, those same hands gripped a wine glass so hard I thought it might shatter. Claire sat across from me in that black dress she knew I loved. Her hair perfect, her smile bright. She'd always been beautiful. That's what drew me in 15 years ago when we met at her father's charity event. She was 23, fresh out of college, full of life. I was 35, divorced, and trying to rebuild after my first marriage collapsed under the weight of my business obsession. Claire felt like a second chance. Her son Kyle was just a toddler then, and when she told me she didn't know who his father was, just some mistakes from her wild phase, I didn't judge. I became that boy's dad in every way that mattered. But that night at Marcello's, something shifted. Jeremy, my so-called friend and one of my biggest clients, had been drinking too much. He made some joke about anniversary gifts, and Claire laughed, that musical sound I used to love. Then she said it, casual as ordering dessert. Well, at least my ex was bigger in the gift department. Paul's more a practical guy. The table erupted. Jeremy choked on his wine. Sarah, his wife, gasped and then giggled. Even David from the accounting firm slapped the table. Claire raised her glass, grinning. "Oh God, Paul, don't look so serious. You know I'm kidding." But I wasn't serious. I was calculating. I set down my napkin, slowly, deliberately, and looked at her. Not angry, not hurt, just looked. "Thanks for the honesty, Claire." The laughter died. Not dramatically, just faded into uncomfortable silence. People suddenly found their plates fascinating. Sarah cleared her throat. Jeremy reached for the wine bottle. Claire's smile faltered. "Babe, it's a joke. You're not really upset, are you?" I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and smiled. Not at her. At nobody in particular. "Excuse me," I said and walked out. I didn't storm. Didn't slam anything. Just left. Behind me, I heard Claire's voice, bright and nervous, trying to restart the party. "He's such a good sport, really." But I wasn't a good sport anymore. I was done being the safe choice, the practical guy, the man who paid for everything and took the jokes with a smile. I walked to my truck in the parking lot, sat in the driver's seat, and didn't start the engine. Just sat there in the dark, listening to my own breathing, feeling something inside me shift from hurt to something colder, something purposeful. That joke cost her more than she'd ever imagined, and I was about to show her exactly how much. I didn't go home that night. Not right away. Instead, I drove to the warehouse, the one where this whole business started 22 years ago. It was past midnight, but I still had keys to every lock in the building. Old habits. I walked through the dark loading bay, past rows of industrial generators and hydraulic systems, and climbed the metal stairs to my old office. The new one downtown had marble floors and a view of the river. This one had concrete walls and memories. I sat in the chair I'd bought at a garage sale in 1998, pulled out my phone, and stared at the 17 missed calls from Claire. 17. Each one probably started with tears and ended with excuses. I didn't listen to a single voicemail. Instead, I opened my email and started reading through the messages I'd been ignoring. Business contracts, client requests, and then, buried 3 weeks back, one that made my blood run cold. The subject line read, "Dad, we need to talk." It was from Kyle. My hand froze on the mouse. Kyle never called me Dad in writing. Always said it out loud, casual, easy, like it was the most natural thing in the world. But never typed it. I clicked. "Dad, I don't know how to say this. I saw something on Mom's phone a few months ago. I wasn't snooping, I swear." She left it open on the kitchen counter, and I saw messages. From some guy named Rick. They weren't just friends. I took screenshots because I didn't know what else to do. "I've been carrying this around, and it's killing me. I want to tell you in person, but I keep chickening out. I'm sorry. I'm attaching the files. You deserve to know. I'm on your side. Always. Kyle." 3 attachments. All screenshots. I opened the first one. A text conversation between Claire and someone saved as R in her contacts. The messages were dated from 4 months ago. Flirty at first, then explicit. Plans to meet. Hotel names. Times when I'd be out of town on business calls. The second screenshot showed a photo. Claire and a man I didn't recognize. Younger, maybe 35, gym body, cocky smile. They were in a restaurant booth, his arm around her shoulders, her head tilted toward him like she belonged there. The third was a voice message transcription. Claire's words. I know I should feel guilty, but I don't. Paul's a good man, but he's boring. You make me feel alive again. I sat there for 20 minutes, phone in hand, staring at those words. Boring. I wasn't angry. I was numb. And then, slowly, something else crept in. Clarity. Kyle had known for months. That 16-year-old kid, the boy I'd raised since he was 2, had carried this weight alone, try and protect me. While his mother played games, Kyle was gathering evidence. He was more of a man at 16 than most grown adults I knew. I typed a response. Kyle, thank you for trusting me with this. You did the right thing. Don't worry about your mom. I'll handle it. And son, you didn't betray anyone. You protected what matters. I'm proud of you. Stay at the house tonight if you want, or come to the warehouse if you need space. Either way, you're not in trouble. You never were. Dad. I hit send and leaned back in the chair. Claire had made her choice. She'd humiliated me publicly, betrayed me privately, and underestimated the one person in that house who actually had a spine. My phone buzzed. Kyle's response came through fast. I'm coming to the warehouse. I don't want to be here when she gets home. 20 minutes later, headlights swept across the parking lot. Kyle's beat-up Honda pulled in, and the kid walked through the bay door carrying a backpack and looking like he'd been holding his breath for months. I met him halfway. He didn't say anything, just dropped the bag and stood there, shoulders tight, eyes red. Come here, I said. He stepped forward and I pulled him into a hug. The kid was taller than me now, but he still felt like the toddler who used to climb into my lap during thunderstorms. You're not alone in this, I told him quietly. We're going to be fine. Both of us. He nodded against my shoulder, and for the first time in months, I felt something other than anger. I felt purpose. Claire thought she'd won. She thought the joke, the affair, the lies were all hers to control. She was wrong, and she was about to find out just how wrong. Kyle stayed at the warehouse that night. We set up a cot in the break room, and I made coffee while he unpacked his laptop. The kid had thought ahead. He'd backed up everything to a cloud drive, made copies, even printed out some of the worst messages, and tucked them in a folder labeled math homework. When did you get so smart? I asked, sliding a mug across the table to him. He shrugged, not meeting my eyes. I watch a lot of crime shows, and I knew if I was going to do this, I had to do it right. I sat down across from him. You shouldn't have had to do anything. This isn't your burden to carry. She's my mom, Kyle said quietly. But you're my dad, and she hurt you. That makes it my problem too. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded. We spent the next 3 hours going through everything. The messages, the hotel receipts, the photos. Kyle had even tracked the guy down on social media. Rick Valdez, 36, personal trainer at an upscale gym downtown. Divorced. No kids. His profile was full of shirtless selfies and motivational quotes about living your truth. Real piece of work, Kyle muttered, scrolling through Rick's Instagram. Mom met him at the gym 6 months ago. She started going every morning before work. Said she wanted to get healthy. And you figured out how. She started dressing different, doing her makeup before the gym instead of after. And she'd come home later and later. Then one day I checked the Find My Phone app. She wasn't at the gym. She was at a hotel. Smart kid. Scary smart. I pulled up the prenuptial agreement on my laptop. Claire and I had signed it 12 years ago when we got married. Her father, Gerald, had insisted. At the time, I thought it was overkill. Now I was grateful. Clause 14C jumped out at me. In the event of documented infidelity or public humiliation of either party, the injured party may activate asset protection protocols, including but not limited to separation of joint accounts and revocation of shared property access. I'd set this up with my attorney years ago, back when I was still raw from my first divorce. Claire had laughed when she signed it. We'll never need this, she'd said. I'm not going anywhere. Wrong. I made a call. At 2 a.m, I didn't expect an answer, but Robert Kimball, my attorney, picked up on the third ring. He was 70, retired from courtroom work but still kept a few private clients. Me being one of them. Paul, he said, voice gravelly with sleep. This better be good. It's not. But I need you. Tomorrow morning. Early. He was quiet for a moment. Then, she cheated. It wasn't a question. Yeah. You have proof. More than enough. Good. Come to my office at 7. Bring everything. He hung up. Kyle looked at me across the table. What happens now? Now, I said, closing the laptop. We execute. Your mother thinks she's playing chess. But she doesn't know I've been planning this move for 12 years. What about me? Kyle asked. His voice was steady, but I could hear the worry underneath. Where do I fit in all this? I met his eyes. You're my son. That doesn't change. Ever. I don't care what some DNA test says or what biology claims. You're mine. And when this is over, you get to choose where you want to be. No pressure. No guilt. Just choice. His jaw tightened. He nodded once, then twice. I choose you. Then we're good, I said. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. He stood up, grabbed his backpack, and headed to the break room. At the door, he stopped. Dad. Yeah. Thanks for not falling apart. I smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes. I'm saving that for later. Right now, I've got work to do. He left, and I turned back to my laptop. Pulled up the bank accounts, the property deeds, the business documents, everything Claire thought we shared. By sunrise, I transferred half our joint savings into a personal account, activated the prenup clause through Robert, and started the paperwork to freeze her access to the house. She'd made a joke of my expense. Now she was about to learn what it cost to humiliate a man who'd spent 20 years building empires out of nothing. Claire came home at 3 in the morning. I heard the garage door open from the warehouse office, where I was monitoring the security cameras I'd installed 6 months ago. Another thing she didn't know about. I watched her stumble inside, still in that black dress, heels in hand. She checked the living room, the kitchen, then went upstairs to our bedroom. She'd find it empty. I watched her pull out her phone, dial my number. It rang on the desk in front of me. I let it go to voicemail. She tried again, and again, 6 times in 10 minutes. Then she called Kyle. That's when I picked up my phone and sent him a text. Don't answer. Let her sweat. His reply came fast, already on it. At 7 a.m., I walked into Robert Kimball's office downtown. He was already there, coffee in hand, reading glasses perched on his nose. He looked up when I entered. You look terrible, he said. I feel worse. Good. Angry clients make stupid decisions. You look calculated. That's better. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Show me what you've got. I laid out everything. The screenshots Kyle had sent. The hotel receipts. The photos. The text messages. Robert flipped through them methodically, his expression never changing. Finally, he set them down and looked at me. This is airtight. You want a divorce. Eventually. But first, I want to activate the prenup. Lock her out financially. Then file for full custody of Kyle. He's not your biological son. I've been his father for 14 years. That counts. Robert nodded slowly. It does. And given that she's the one who committed adultery, and that Kyle is 16 and can choose where he lives, you've got a strong case. But it's going to get ugly. Let it. He smiled, thin and sharp. I'll have the papers filed by noon. She'll be served by end of business today. What about the house? Under the prenup, you can revoke her access to any property held in your name prior to the marriage. That includes the house on Belmont Ridge. Do it, Paul, Robert said, leaning back in his chair. I've known you 20 years. You're not a vindictive man, but you're about to burn her world to the ground. You sure about this? I thought about the joke, the laughter, the humiliation, the months of lies while I worked myself half to death to give her the life she wanted. The way she'd looked at me across that table, like I was nothing more than a checkbook with a pulse. I'm sure, I said. Robert nodded. Then let's get to work. By noon, the joint bank account was frozen. By 2 p.m., the house locks were changed. By 4 p.m., a courier delivered the papers to Claire at her office downtown. I didn't need to be there to see her reaction. I could imagine it. The shock, the anger, the realization that the boring, practical husband she'd joked about wasn't nearly as soft as she thought. Kyle and I had lunch at a diner across town. He picked at his fries, quiet. She's going to call you, I said. I know. You don't have to answer. He looked up at me. What if she cries? Then she cries. That doesn't change what she did. He nodded, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. She was still his mother. That didn't just disappear, no matter how much she'd screwed up. Kyle, I said, whatever you decide, I'm not going to be angry. If you want to talk to her, talk to her. If you want to see her, see her. This is between me and her. You don't have to choose sides. I already did, he said quietly. I chose you the day I sent that email. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. She's called my office 12 times in the last hour. Threatened to sue. I told her to get her own lawyer. I showed Kyle the message. He almost smiled. Think she's figured it out yet, he asked. That I'm not the safe, boring guy she married? I said, yeah, I think she's starting to get the picture. Gerald Lawson didn't call me. He showed up. 3 days after Claire got served with papers, his black Mercedes pulled into the warehouse parking lot at 7 in the morning. I watched him from the office window as he climbed out, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the entrance like a man on a mission. Kyle was eating breakfast at the break room table. He looked up when he heard the footsteps. That's Grandpa Gerald, he said quietly. I know. You think he's here to yell at you. Probably. But when Gerald walked through the door, he wasn't angry. He looked tired. Old, in a way I'd never seen before. He was 68, built like a man who'd spent his life in boardrooms and country clubs. But right now, he looked like someone had knocked the wind out of him. Paul, he said. Gerald. He looked at Kyle. Morning, son. Morning, Grandpa. Gerald turned back to me. Can we talk? Privately. I nodded toward my office. Kyle stayed at the table, watching us both with careful eyes. Inside, Gerald sat down heavily in the chair across from my desk. He didn't speak for a moment, just stared at the floor, hands clasped in his lap. She came to me yesterday, he finally said, crying, telling me you'd locked her out of the house, frozen the accounts, taken Kyle from her. Said you were being cruel and vindictive over nothing. And you believed her. He looked up at me, and his eyes were sharp. I've known you 15 years, Paul. You're a lot of things. Vindictive isn't one of them. So no, I didn't believe her. I asked her what happened. Really happened. She gave me some story about a joke at dinner that you blew out of proportion. It wasn't just a joke. I know. Gerald pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and set it on my desk. I hired my own investigator. Had him follow her for the last week. That's what he found. I opened the envelope. More photos. Claire and Rick Valdez. Different hotels. Different restaurants. Timestamps showing she'd been meeting him almost daily since I'd moved out. She didn't even slow down, Gerald said, his voice flat. You walked out, filed papers, and she just kept going. Like nothing happened. I set the photos down. I'm sorry you had to see this. Don't be sorry. I needed to know. He leaned back in the chair, looking older than ever. When Claire was young, I spoiled her. Her mother died when she was 12, and I didn't know what else to do. I gave her everything she wanted, never made her work for anything. I thought I was being a good father, but I created someone who doesn't understand consequences. Gerald, let me finish. He held up a hand. I'm not excusing what she did. I'm explaining it. She thinks the world revolves around her, that people exist to make her happy. And when they don't, she just moves on to someone who will. That's my fault, not yours. What are you saying? I'm saying you're doing the right thing. Lock her out. Take the house. Protect Kyle. Gerald looked toward the door, where Kyle was still sitting in the break room. That boy deserves better than what she's giving him. And frankly, so do you. I didn't know what to say. Gerald stood up. I'm changing my will. Claire won't inherit a dime. Everything's going to Kyle, in a trust managed by you. I'll have my attorney draw up the papers this week. You don't have to do that. Yes, I do. Because if I leave it to her, she'll blow through it in 5 years and have nothing to show for it. But Kyle, he's got your sense, your work ethic. He'll make something of himself. Gerald walked to the door, then stopped. Paul, I'm sorry for what you did, for not seeing it sooner. You're a good man. You deserve better. Thank you, Gerald. He left, just like that. No dramatics, no anger, just a father accepting that his daughter had failed and choosing to do the right thing anyway. Kyle appeared in the doorway a moment later. What did he say? He's on our side, I told him. Kyle's shoulders sagged with relief. I thought he'd hate me for picking you. He doesn't. He's proud of you. Kyle nodded, but I could see the emotion working behind his eyes. He'd just lost his mother, in every way that mattered. And even though he'd chosen me, even though he knew it was the right choice, it still hurt. Come here, I said. He crossed the room, and I pulled him into a hug. He was 17 now, nearly a man, but he still needed this. We all did. We're going to be okay, I said quietly. Both of us. I know, Kyle said. Because you don't quit. No, I thought. I don't. 2 weeks after the papers were served, Robert Kimball called me with news I wasn't expecting. Paul, we got a problem. Or rather, Claire has a problem, and you're about to benefit from it. What kind of problem? I was going through the financial records for the divorce proceedings. You know, standard audit, making sure everything's accounted for. I found some irregularities. I sat up straighter. What kind of irregularities? The college fund you set up for Kyle. The one with $150,000 in it. It's at $82,000 now. My blood went cold. What? $68,000 withdrawn over the last 18 months. Multiple transactions, all authorized by Claire. She had joint access to the account. Where did it go? That's what I'm working on. But based on the withdrawal dates and amounts, and cross-referencing with her credit card statements, I'd say she was using it to fund her lifestyle. Hotels, dinners, gifts. There's even a $5,000 charge to a jewelry store the same day she withdrew $10,000 from Kyle's fund. I stood up, pacing the office. She stole from her own son. Technically, it was a joint account, so it wasn't theft in the legal sense. But morally, yeah, she stole from him. Can we use this? Absolutely. It shows financial irresponsibility, parental neglect, misuse of funds intended for a minor. Judge is going to love this. Or hate her for it, which amounts to the same thing. I want every transaction documented. Every dollar accounted for. Already on it. I'll have a full report by end of week. I hung up and stood there, staring at the wall, feeling something beyond anger. Kyle had worked part-time jobs since he was 14. Saved money. Talked about college like it was this big dream. And Claire had been siphoning off his future to pay for hotel rooms with her trainer boyfriend. I walked out to the warehouse floor. Kyle was helping one of my guys load hydraulic pumps onto a truck. He saw me and jogged over. Dad, you okay? You look like someone just kicked your dog. I didn't sugarcoat it. Your college fund. Your mother withdrew $68,000 over the last year and a half. His face went blank. What? She used it. Hotels, restaurants, gifts. She spent your college money on her affair. Kyle just stood there processing. Then his jaw tightened, and something dark flashed across his face. I worked for that money. I saved. I put in half of everything I earned from mowing lawns and stocking shelves. I know. And she just took it. Yeah. He turned away, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight. I gave him a minute. When he turned back, his eyes were red but dry. I don't want to see her anymore, he said quietly. I know I said I'd think about it, but I'm done. She can cry all she wants. I don't care. You sure? Yeah. She stole my future to pay for her fun. That's not a mother. That's a thief. I put a hand on his shoulder. We'll rebuild the fund. I'll match what she took, dollar for dollar. You don't have to. Yes, I do. You earned that money. You deserve to have it. Kyle nodded, then looked up at me. What happens to her now? Now, she answers for it. In court. In front of judge. And she explains why she thought it was okay to steal from her own son. Good, Kyle said. And he meant it. The envelope arrived 6 weeks after I filed for divorce. Thick, cream-colored paper, my name written in elegant gold script. Inside was an invitation to the Lawson Foundation Annual Gala, celebrating 25 years of charitable work in industrial safety and education. I stared at it, sitting in my warehouse office, coffee going cold on the desk. The gala was Gerald's pride and joy. Every year, he gathered the city's business elite, raised money for scholarships and safety programs, gave speeches about responsibility and legacy. I'd attended 12 times, always with Claire on my arm, always playing the role of the supportive son-in-law. This year will be different. Kyle walked in, saw the invitation, and raised an eyebrow. You going? Thinking about it. Mom will be there. I know. You sure you want to deal with that? I set the invitation down. Kyle, I've spent the last month and a half hiding, moving money, filing papers, avoiding confrontation. Maybe it's time I stopped hiding. What are you going to do? Show up. Be present. Let everyone see that I'm not the broken man she probably told them I am. Kyle nodded slowly. Can I come? You want to? Yeah. Grandpa Gerald asked me to. Said it would mean a lot to him. And honestly, I want to be there. For you. I looked at this kid, almost a man now, who'd chosen me over his own mother, who'd carried secrets and guilt and still managed to keep his head up. Then we'll go together. I said. The night of the gala, Kyle and I drove downtown in my truck. He wore a suit I'd bought him that afternoon, charcoal gray. Fit him perfectly. He kept adjusting his tie. You look good, I told him. I feel like I'm playing dress up. You're not. You're representing yourself. And you're doing it well. We pulled up to the Grandview Hotel, handed the keys to valet, and walked through the massive doors into the ballroom. The place was packed. Business owners, city officials, donors. Everyone dressed to impress, holding champagne glasses, making small talk. And there, near the center of the room, was Claire. She wore red. Always red when she wanted attention. Her hair was done up, makeup perfect, and she was laughing with a group of women I recognized from her social circle. She hadn't seen me yet. Gerald spotted us first. He crossed the room, shook my hand firmly, then pulled Kyle into a hug. Glad you came, Gerald said to me. Wouldn't miss it. She's been telling people you're unstable, that you're trying to turn Kyle against her. And what do people say? Gerald smiled. They're polite to her face. But I've had 3 separate people pull me aside and ask if you're okay. Word travels fast in circles like this. Good. Kyle, and I moved through the room. I shook hands, made conversation, acted like nothing was wrong. Every few minutes, I'd catch someone glancing between me and Claire, putting together the pieces. Then she saw me. Our eyes met across the room. Her smile froze. The champagne glass in her hand trembled slightly. I didn't look away, just held her gaze, calm and steady, until she turned back to her group. Dad, Kyle whispered. She looked scared. She should be. The evening progressed. Dinner was served. Gerald gave his speech, thanked donors, announced scholarship recipients. And then, at the end, he did something unexpected. Before we closed tonight, Gerald said from the podium, I want to recognize someone who embodies the values this foundation stands for. Someone who builds, who creates, who provides opportunities for others. Paul Brooks, would you stand? I stood, surprised. Paul started with nothing and built Brooks Industrial Supply into one of the most reliable contractors in the state. He employs over 60 people. He's been a partner in this foundation for years, quietly funding scholarships, never asking for recognition. And more importantly, he's been a father to my grandson Kyle, who's here tonight, and who's grown into a fine young man because of Paul's influence. Applause filled the room. I saw Claire's face go pale. Gerald continued. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the choice we make to show up, to do the work, to be present. Paul's done that, and we're grateful. I sat down. Kyle gripped my shoulder. Around the room, people were watching me differently now, not with pity or curiosity, but with respect. Claire left 10 minutes later. Didn't say goodbye to anyone. Just walked out, heels clicking on marble. Kyle watched her go. She didn't expect that. No, I said. She didn't. And that was the point. Claire tried to approach me 3 times that night at the gala. Each time, someone intercepted her. First Gerald, who pulled her aside for what looked like a tense conversation. Then one of her friends, who whispered something that made Claire's face flush. The third time, I simply turned and walked in the other direction. By the time the event ended, she was furious. Kyle and I were walking to the valet stand when she caught up to us in the lobby. Paul, she called out. I stopped, turned. Kyle stayed beside me. Claire looked different up close. Tired under the makeup. Thinner than I remembered. Her eyes were hard. We need to talk, she said. No, we don't. Yes, we do. You're turning everyone against me. My own father just humiliated me in front of 200 people. He recognized me for my work. That's not humiliation. You know what I mean. Her voice rose. You've poisoned him. You've taken Kyle. You've locked me out of my own house. This is insane. Your house, I said calmly. The one I bought 7 years before we got married. The one that's titled solely in my name. She faltered. We built a life there. You built lies there. I built a life. There's a difference. Kyle shifted beside me, uncomfortable but silent. Claire looked at him, and her expression softened. Kyle, honey, can we talk? Just you and me. No, Kyle said quietly. Please, I'm your mother. You stole my college money to pay for your affair, Kyle said, his voice steady. You don't get to call yourself my mother anymore. Claire's face went white. I was going to pay it back. I just needed. You needed what? Kyle interrupted. Hotel rooms, jewelry, whatever made you happy while Dad worked himself to death giving you everything. Kyle, I'm done, Kyle said. I gave you chances. I stayed quiet when I should have said something. But you kept going. You didn't stop. You didn't even slow down. So no, Mom, we're not going to talk. Claire's eyes filled with tears. Real ones, I thought. But whether they were for Kyle or for herself, I couldn't tell. She turned to me. You did this. You turned him against me. No, I said. You did that yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. I made one mistake. It wasn't one mistake. It was months of lying. It was stealing from your son. It was humiliating me in front of our friends. It was choosing someone else over your family, over and over again. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You made a joke at dinner about your ex, said he was bigger in the gift department. You wanted everyone to laugh at me, to see me as the boring, practical guy who couldn't measure up. Her face flushed. But here's the thing, Claire. Your ex might have given you bigger gifts, but I gave you a life, a home, a family, and you threw it away for cheap thrills and cheaper company. I turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing, I said, looking back at her. You told people your ex was bigger, but at least I'm the one people respect. The words landed like a hammer. Claire stood there, frozen, as Kyle and I walked away. Outside, the valet brought my truck around. Kyle climbed in quiet. As we drove away, he finally spoke. That was brutal, Dad. She earned it. Yeah, Kyle said. She did. We drove home in silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people who just fought a battle and won. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Plain walls, fluorescent lights, rows of wooden benches. Claire sat at the defendant's table with her attorney, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s who'd probably heard every excuse in the book. Kyle sat beside me, hands folded in his lap, jaws set. Judge Patricia Hartwell entered, and we all stood. She was in her 60s, gray hair pulled back tight, eyes that missed nothing. She'd been on the bench for 30 years. Robert had told me she had zero patience for games. Be seated, Judge Hartwell said. The hearing lasted 2 hours. Robert presented everything methodically. The affair, the hotel receipts, the screenshots of messages, the testimony from Kyle about finding the evidence, the financial records showing Claire had drained $68,000 from Kyle's college fund. Claire's attorney tried to spin it. Your Honor, my client acknowledges mistakes were made in the marriage. However, the account in question was jointly held, and Mrs. Brooks had legal access. Legal access doesn't mean ethical use. Judge Hartwell interrupted. Continue. Robert then brought up the prenuptial agreement. Clause 14C. Public humiliation and documented infidelity. He played audio from the anniversary dinner, recorded by one of the guests who'd provided it voluntarily. Claire's voice, making the joke. The laughter. My response. The judge listened without expression. Finally, she set down her pen and looked at both attorneys. Anything else? Your Honor, Claire's attorney said, we'd like to request shared custody of Kyle Brooks and a division of marital assets per standard state guidelines. Judge Hartwell turned to Kyle. Mr. Brooks, you're 16 years old enough to have a say in this. Where do you want to live? Kyle stood up. His voice was steady. With my dad, Your Honor. Paul Brooks. He's been my father since I was 2. He's the one who showed up. He's the one I trust. And your relationship with your mother? She stole my college money to fund an affair. I don't want to live with her. Judge Hartwell nodded. Sit down, son. She looked at the documents in front of her for a long moment. Then she spoke. Mrs. Brooks, I've reviewed the evidence presented today. The affair is documented and undisputed. The financial misuse of your son's education fund is documented and undisputed. The prenuptial agreement is valid and enforceable. Therefore, I'm ruling as follows. She looked up directly at Claire. Full custody of Kyle Brooks is granted to Paul Brooks, with visitation rights to Mrs. Brooks at Kyle's discretion, not yours. The house on Belmont Ridge remains the sole property of Paul Brooks per the prenuptial agreement. The joint assets are to be divided 60-40, with 60% to Mr. Brooks due to financial misconduct. Mrs. Brooks, you are ordered to repay the $68,000 withdrawn from Kyle's education fund within 18 months, with interest. Claire's face went white. Furthermore, Judge Hartwell continued, I'm ordering you to undergo mandatory financial counseling and to provide quarterly reports to this court regarding your repayment plan. This is not a request. This is an order. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor. Claire whispered. Good. This hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down. Outside the courthouse, Kyle and I stood in the parking lot. He was quiet, processing. You okay? I asked. Yeah, I didn't think it would feel this final. It is final. That's the point. He nodded. What happens now? Now we go home. We rebuild your college fund. You finish high school. You apply to colleges. You live your life. And Mom, she figures out her own life. That's not your responsibility anymore. Kyle looked at me. Thank you, Dad, for fighting for me. Always, I said. That's what fathers do. We drove home together, and for the first time in months, the weight that had been sitting on both our shoulders was gone. 2 years can change everything. Kyle graduated high school with honors, got accepted to 3 universities, chose mechanical engineering at State. His college fund was fully restored, plus some. I'd matched every dollar Claire took and added another $50,000 for good measure. Claire moved to an apartment across town, got a job in retail, something she'd never done before. Gerald cut her off financially, stuck to his word about the will. She paid back the education fund in monthly installments, never missed a payment. I'll give her that. Kyle saw her occasionally. Coffee, lunch, careful conversations. She'd apologized multiple times, but Kyle kept his distance. Some wounds heal, others just scar over. Gerald passed away 8 months ago. Heart attack, quick and painless. His will left everything to Kyle, held in trust with me as executor. Claire got nothing. At the funeral, she stood in the back, didn't speak to anyone. Kyle gave the eulogy, talked about integrity, about showing up, about being the man his grandfather believed he could be. Me? I kept working, expanded the business, opened a second warehouse, hired 20 more people, stayed single, focused on building something lasting. And then, on a Tuesday in September, I met someone. Her name was Beth. 42, divorced, 2 kids of her own. She came into the warehouse looking for industrial parts for her machine shop. We talked business for an hour. Then she asked if I wanted to grab coffee. I said yes. We took it slow. Dinners, movies, long conversations about everything and nothing. She didn't want anything from me except company, and that was exactly what I needed. Kyle met her 3 months in. They got along immediately. She treated him like an adult, asked about his studies, his plans. Didn't try to replace anyone, just existed alongside us. On Kyle's 19th birthday, we had dinner at the house. Just the 3 of us. Beth cooked, insisted on it. Kyle told stories about college, about his engineering projects, about the life he was building. At the end of the night, as Beth was leaving, Kyle pulled me aside. I like her, Dad. She's good for you. Yeah. You deserve to be happy. So do you, son. He grinned. I am. Thanks to you. After he left for campus the next morning, I sat on the back porch with my coffee, looking out at the yard, thinking about everything that had happened. Claire had made a joke. A stupid, careless joke meant to get a laugh. She thought it was harmless. Thought I'd take it like I always did, swallow my pride, play the good sport. But that joke cost her everything. Her marriage, her son, her father's respect, her inheritance. And me? I'd lost a wife, gained clarity, and learned that sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is walk away and let consequences follow. My phone buzzed. A text from Beth. Coffee later? My treat. I smiled and typed back. Sounds good. Life moves forward. Some people move with it. Others get left behind. I chose to move forward, and I wasn't looking back.